Hello and welcome to Hump Day. Woo. As we get into the month of October, our series is entitled, Is Jesus a Republican or a Democrat? That's a good question, isn't it? And our lesson today is living in Babylon. I mean America. We're living in America. But after studying this lesson, students will understand that we cannot do as the world does. We cannot bow to idol gods, whether they are human or statues, and understand that anything goes when the whistle blows is not something we live by. Now, let me give you a little talk here, an introduction. During the 60s, if you attended a mainline denominational church, you could easily come away believing that Jesus was a Democrat. Yeah, you could. Because the social justice concerns of those churches seem to mesh smoothly with the platform of the Democratic Party. The attack on racism, poverty, sexism that form the core of the Democrat agenda or platform were also the primary concern of the mainline denominations. At the annual assemblies or conventions of those denominations, debate focused on liberal social issues. Resolutions were passed that lent theology and biblical legitimation to the progressive idea being championed by the Democrats. You hear me now? Those were the days of Martin Luther King and his dream for America. The temperature of the country was liberal, and the mainline denominations created for America a God who incarnated their liberal cause. Now, but then the pendulum swung. Conservatism now appears to be unstoppable in both political and religion. And, often you can't distinguish one from the other. But while those were the days of during the Martin Luther King and those days where the Democrats were championing the causes and they were the main thing, they championed poverty, sexism, racism. And we look at ourselves now and we think, how did Donald Trump, how did he get to be president? Well, by the end of this series, which means not this lesson, I said series, for those who might want a list of books that you could read some of this, you will understand. But during those days, you hear Donald Trump is the nightmare for this generation. But you remember the moral majority, don't you? Jerry Falwell. You remember John Birch Society, don't you? You remember George Wallace. Well, all of that along with, and I'm going to call them out, I ain't scare you, along with the evangelical church was undercover working on overthrowing everything that we held dear. And their idea was, we are letting the animals run the jungle or run the zoo. The animals are in charge of the zoo, or the inmates are in charge of the asylum. That's the way they felt. And so therefore it seemed like God has switched political affiliations. These days, God seemed to have become a deity owned by the Republican Party. I can't think of nothing worse than, yeah, I'm going to say it, Mitch McConnell telling God what to do. Ooh, because if that rascal, if that brother, if that man had the power to tell God what to do and God did it, I would not be sitting here talking to you. If I was here talking to you today, I wouldn't be here next week. And so we see that the Republican Party is now parading Jesus as a member of the Republican Party. So, but let us take a look at, are we living in America or are we living in Babylon? When we look at society, we see just how corrupt it is. And like Marvin Gaye, we must ask the question, what's going on? The world seems to be in fear of Putin. Gas prices at one time will reach $5 a gallon. Baby formula was almost non-existent. No water in Jacksonville, Mississippi. But if you notice, there's been no mention in the news until now about no water. And interesting, I'm getting a little sidetracked here, right? But interesting, I haven't heard of any drive to send water to Jacksonville, right here in these here United States. But I've heard of more than one drive to send water to the Ukrainians. And now they may need water. Now I don't begrudge them water. But I do know that Jesus said to the disciples, when the power comes, you ought to be witness of me right here in Jerusalem then. So in other words, Jesus say, look, before you go across the street, across the rivers, take care of home first. But okay. Well, look, in the last few months, an 18-year-old walked into an elementary school and killed 19 kids and 2 adults after shooting his grandmama and wrecking the truck. And his body was covered in body armor. This shooter was an 18-year-old Hispanic, and he was killed by the police on the scene. They didn't do much, anything else but to kill him. Now, just 10 days before that, listen to me now. An 18-year-old traveled some 200 or 300 miles, walks into a grocery store. He's covered in body armor. I don't know why they even sell that stuff. And mercilessly kills 10 black people while yelling racial slurs. Now, watch out, watch this. Now, remember the 18-year-old who was the 19-year-old, no, he was 18-year-old Hispanic. He was killed right there on the spot. And he shoots up at the school, and there are pictures of the children running out. And I tell you, it brings tears to my eyes when I have to see children who are in school have to come out with their hands up behind the head. Are they coming out like that? Are we in Babylon or are we in America? But let me get back. Anyway, This 18-year-old who killed uh, 19 kids and 2 adults in Texas. Now, he was killed on the spot. This other 18-year-old who killed 10 black people, he was arrested. But there wasn't a scratch on him. There was no harm done to him at all. Well, that's another lesson. But in the words of Marvin Gaye, what's going on? And in the words of Malcolm X, he gives the answer. Marvin Gaye asks, what's going on? Malcolm X gives the answer. He said, the chickens have come home to roost. And the things that we're seeing happening in society today are the result of the climate of hate, which is a byproduct of sin. It all boils down to rights. The Bill of Rights guarantees every American the right to bear arms, but the Constitution doesn't specify what arms. And every time they try to deal with gun control, citizens declare they are taking away our rights. And so there's no argument about the fact that groups like the National Rifle Association have the law on their side. They got the law on their side. But why are they making such big guns that is not used for hunting meat? Now, I will say right here, I'm sitting here able to talk to you today because I had a gun. That got your attention? Because when someone tried to break into my house, the only thing that saved me was the fact that I had a gun. And when he started breaking in my kitchen window, he knew I was there because he rung the doorbell and I said, who is it? He never answered. But he started breaking in the kitchen window and was going to come in. And that's when I shot the gun. And that's when he ran. But based on that, I still say, now I had a little old 22. No, 38. I'm here because of a gun. But I don't need a Uzi. I don't need a 45. None of us do. On our money, we have the words, in God we trust. But really, I think it should say, in guns we trust. And I ask you again, are we living in America? Or are we in Babylon? Now, it seems anything goes when the whistle blows in Babylon. But here's what I want to say. You will notice that God is giving us fair warning that He is in control. Last night on the weather report, talking about such a massive storm about to hit Texas, Florida, and all that area like the likes you've never seen. I think Baton Rouge, Louisiana was, because it turned and it was coming in towards Baton Rouge. And it was like a storm that Baton Rouge had never seen or heard before. I saw on the news this morning, I believe I did, that Cuba has no lights. Cuba, no lights. It didn't say a city in Cuba, it said Cuba. God is showing us who is in control. As he showed Nebuchadnezzar, who's in control. In our lesson, Daniel chapter 3, we get the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They stood up to King Nebuchadnezzar. They refused to bow to this 9-story tall golden image, even when their lives were at stake. Why didn't they bow? Because they believed God was able to deliver them. Do you believe that? Their faith was so strong that they even declared that they believed he was able to deliver them, but if he didn't, still wasn't going to bow. So Nebuchadnezzar, he was ready then. He said, I'm going to give you another chance. And so he said, so when the music start, I need everybody to fall down and worship the golden idol. So let's read it. Daniel chapter 3, verse 4 through 7, and then we're going to jump down to 13 and to 18. A herald then proclaimed in a loud voice, attention everyone, every race, color, and creed, listen. When you hear the band strike up, all the trumpets and the trombones, the tubas and the baritones, the drums and the cymbals, fall to your knees and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Anyone who does not kneel and worship shall be thrown immediately into a roaring furnace. The band started to play, a huge band, equipped with all the musical instruments of Babylon, and everyone, every race, color, and creed, fell to their knees and worshiped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Now let me go to 13. But in the meantime, let me say, everyone, that's what it said, everyone fell to their knees to worship the gold statue. Everyone except Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And somebody else didn't have their face down, pressed to the ground, because otherwise they would not have seen Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they told Nebuchadnezzar, so we'll pick it up in verse 13. Furious, Nebuchadnezzar ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought in. When the men were brought in, Nebuchadnezzar asked, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you don't respect my gods and refuse to obey the gold statue that I have set up? I'm giving you a second chance. But from now on, when the big band strikes up, you must go to your knees and worship the statue I have made. Well, dude, if you have made a statue, then that statue ain't got no power. If you don't worship it, you will be pitched into a roaring furnace. No questions asked. Now, he sound like Pharaoh. Because when Moses went to Pharaoh, he said, thus said the Lord, let my people go. And Pharaoh said, and who is God that I should obey him? And so now Nebuchadnezzar asked a question, who is the God who can rescue you from my power? And I think that is what the world is asking today, or thinking today. Who is the God who can rescue you from my power? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered. I love that. They answered King Nebuchadnezzar, your threat means nothing to us. If you throw us in the fire, the God we serve can rescue us from your roaring furnace and anything else you might cook up, O king. While you trying to cook us, anything else that you come up with, you might cook up. He can deal with it, but, and I love it, but, and I say all the time, you got to watch the buts in Scripture. Even if he doesn't, then I'm telling you, he can do it. But if he doesn't, it won't make a bit of difference, O king. We still won't serve your gods or worship the gold statue you set up. No, dude, it ain't going to happen. Now, let me say, they could have made excuses, as many of us do. We make excuses of why we haven't returned to church. We make excuses of why we don't deal with Sunday school. We make excuses for everything except what we want to do. Look, I'm telling you, I probably would have been just like them. Make an excuse. In fact, I would have said, how can we stand up instead of bowing down under pressure like this? God will understand, won't he? He knows my heart, and I can pretend that I'm bowing to the God, to this idol God. But in my heart, I will be worshiping the true and living God. And I thought to myself, that's about what I would do. That sounds pretty good to me. And then the Spirit led me to Exodus chapter 20, verse 4 and 5. And it said, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. And I thought, okay, I haven't made any graven image. Then verse 5 said, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. And the point for you to ponder, what excuse would you have if faced with such a dilemma? What would you have done? Oh, I know on this side of Calvary, we can talk about, honey, I wouldn't have bowed. No, not me. The Lord will take care of me. And yet, we still trying to figure out COVID-19. And if you believe the Lord will take care of you, how come you haven't come back to church? Okay, I'm meddling. But here's what we need to realize. There are 3 reasons. I think I got 3 down here. No, 4 reasons. Well, 3 reasons and a statement. Reason number 1, that we should not bow because we have faith in God's power. God is sovereign and can do whatever he needs to do. He has power to deliver and to defend. I love this. He has AAA power. And see, some of us, we use it like we do AAA for our car. We don't need it until something happens. But you got God's AAA power at your readiness, at your convenience. God is able to turn the darkness to light, despair into delight, anxiety into assurance, burdens into blessing, emptiness into fullness, and take the heat out of fire. Woo! God is able. He has the power. He has the power. 1 Chronicles 29:12 said, both riches and honor comes from you, and you rule over all. Now let me stop right here, because this is a teaching moment within the teaching moment. You see where it said both riches and honor come from you? Then stop getting up saying, first giving honor to God. You got no honor to give to God. Honor belongs to him. He bestows it upon you. Do you hear me? First giving honor to God. No. Honor is his. Riches are his. If he didn't give it to you, you wouldn't have it. So stop it. Both riches and honor come from you, and you rule over all. In your hand. Hand. Didn't even say hands. One hand to do. Are power and might. And in your hand it is to make great and to give strength to all. Somebody outline that and go tell Donald Trump he can't make America great again. It's in God's hand. Jude 24. Now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy. So that's how come you don't bow, because he's got AAA power, able, abundant power. His power's not lacking. There's no shortage, no scarcity. God has the power. He had it from the beginning. He's got it now, and he's going to have it at the end. He has not lost any of his power. I just told you, in Cuba, they had no power at all. No lights, no nothing, no power. But here's for us, we got it, because even if the lights go out, we've got power in God. His power is absolute. It's not insufficient. It's not incapable. It's not incompetent. He has the power. Got omnipotent power. You know what that means? That means he can do what he pleases, when he pleases, where he pleases, why he pleases, as he pleases. And who can stop him? Nobody. Nobody can stop him, because nobody started him. Nobody gave him the power, so nobody can take it away from him. Another reason that we cannot bow, we got faith in him, in his power. We have faith in God's purpose. As with all true faith, their confidence, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, was not blind to the realities of the situation, nor to the fact that God works out his purposes in the way that he chooses, not the way we would choose. In other words, let's back up. They were not blind to the realities that they could possibly get thrown into the fiery furnace. They weren't blind to that. But they knew that God's purpose would prevail at the end. because Romans 8:28 said, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them that are called according to his purpose. Your purpose ain't got nothing to do with it. It's all about him. So, here's what you need to understand. Get it down in your spirit. When God allows problems to arise, problems, trials, or any disasters in our lives, God has a plan and a purpose. If God allows you to get a bad doctor's report that said you got cancer, God has a plan and a purpose. And God allows problems to be teaching moments to us. But see, somehow or another, we miss that. See, when the disciples were in the boat, going across the Galilee Sea, and the storm came up. There's more than one occasion. The storm came up. He was asleep in the boat. They woke him up. It was a moment for them to be taught that he has control over the elements, because they had forgotten that he had control. He could provide on the shore of life, and now he is showing them he can provide for them on the sea of life. Woo! God Almighty. I wish you would hear me. So, Shadrach and Meshach, there are some teaching moments for them to learn, and particularly for us to learn. But let me go back to that boat business again. There another time, when they was in the boat, Jesus wasn't with them this time. The other time, he was asleep. This time, he's up in the mountains praying. But he saw them, saw that they were in trouble. That's the good news. That's enough to make you just lay things down and go out, start running through your house. That I don't care where you are, where he is, he can see you when you're in trouble. Don't think he doesn't know what's going on with you right now. Don't think he doesn't know what's happening. When you lay down and go to sleep, you don't know what's going on, but he knows everything. So in the case of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, oh, wait a minute, I didn't finish that thought. So what did they learn then? That he will come to you in your time of trouble. He come walking to them on the water. Nothing can stop him from getting to you. He didn't get another boat and say, hurry up, row. I need to catch up with them. He was walking on water. Scared them to death. They thought it was a ghost. Peter said, if it's you, then bid me come on out here. And he said, come. That's all he said, come. And Peter was walking on water until he took his eyes off of Jesus. And that's the lesson for us to learn as well. We can go through any situation as long as we keep our eyes on Jesus. Now, in the case of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I'm finally getting back to that. We learned that jealous people will try to hurt you. You need to know that. Jealous people will try to hurt you. Immoral people will try to defile you. And selfish people will try to use you. But here's something else that we also learn. Sometimes our faith increases our problems rather than reducing them. Woo! If you don't get anything else from this lesson, get that. Sometimes our faith increases our problems rather than reducing them. And understand this, if God is better glorified by delivering his people, he will do it. We saw that at the Red Sea. If God, and we saw that at the Jordan River. But if God is better glorified by not delivering his people, he will do that. And we see at times, and we saw that he did not deliver the disciples on other occasions. Peter was killed. All of them were killed. Because he's better glorified by not delivering them. So we must conclude that the absence of deliverance means a lot, does not mean, we must never conclude that the absence of deliverance means a lack of faith on our part or a lack of faithfulness on God's part. Because faith means trusting in God and his word. Faith does not mean that we either know or we understand what his specific purpose in our lives may be, because we don't. If we knew that, then we didn't need faith. However, faith means a ready willingness to follow him whatever he proposes. And that's what the old school church used to sing. Where he leads me, I will follow. And the third reason that we don't bow, because we have faith in God's presence. Notice Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were delivered from the flames, or maybe I should say, more accurately, in the flames. Because there is no suggestion here or elsewhere in the scripture that the believer will be cushioned against trouble and suffering except by the presence of the Lord with him. And here's something that you need to remember. Highlight it, write it down, post it up so you can see it, put it on your refrigerator, on your mirror in your bedroom. You meet the Lord in the furnace a long time before you meet him in the sky. Let me add something else. You meet the Lord in the furnace a long time and many times before you meet him in the sky. You'll meet him in the sky one time, but you can sure enough meet him in the furnace more than one time. But you won't meet him in the furnace if you don't know him. And whatever our circumstances may be, God promises to be with us. He promises, when thou passest through the water, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, they shall not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. That comes from Isaiah. Look what Deuteronomy says. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them. For the Lord thy God, he it is that doth go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. Then look what Joshua 1:5 tells us. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so shall I be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Matthew 28:20 says, I am with you always, even until the end of the age. And Matthew 18:20 proves our lesson. Where two or three are gathered in my name, be whether you're in the fire, or you're in the house, or you're in the yard, when two or three are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. And the fourth point, our faith will help us to stand for God. We are not called to bow to other gods, but to stand for God. We are not in Babylon, so stand. We stand when we sing the national anthem, when we pledge allegiance to the flag, when the president enters a room. So why not stand for God? And let me give you one or two scriptures. Ephesians 6:11, 13, and 14. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. You will not be able to stand against the wiles of the devil if you have not put on the whole armor of God. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness. And we'll close you out with this. 1 Corinthians 10:12. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed, lest he falls. Galatians 5:1, for freedom Christ has set us free. So stand firm. Stand firm. And do not be subject again to the yoke of slavery. That's our lesson. Next week we will do, is this the generation? Woo! Is this the generation? As we continue to see, is Jesus a Republican or a Democrat? Now, if you want to become a part of St. Stephen Church or a life group, we invite you today to join us. Call 502-583-6798, extension 0. And if no one answers, just leave a voicemail. I guarantee you, someone will get back to you. Our email newstart@ssclive.org, and someone will get to you, will answer you. I'm sure it will be a young lady by the name of Grace Duncan. She will call you. I'll see you next week. Be blessed by looking at the pictures of we've come this far by faith.